Smart 24, driving business.
Yes, we'll be back from that short breather. It's just 28 minutes to the top of the hour. This is Smart Means Business, where we drive business across Africa and, of course, the globe at large. Yes, today we're discussing the hotel business, understanding the hotel industry, and, of course, from the Ghanaian perspective, the East African perspective, and later on, we get the broader picture. That is for the entire African continent. And, of course, our vision, our goal is to make sure that if you're an investor out there, you're watching from any part of the country you're watching, and you probably you had thought about investing into a hotel business. It could be, it may not be particularly a hotel, but it could be an accommodation facility. This is the information that you definitely need to understand how best you can actually have your portfolio across your region. You know, it could be operating from within the southern region, the SADC, but you can operate, of course, with other regions as a result of that. Well, hotels in Africa, and I'm with Godwin Batuman. But probably before we proceed, I just want to let you know there is a big picture in here which we were talking about because we want to take a look at the leading industry players and what are their strengths and weaknesses. But the issue when you were talking about foreigners owning hotels, because as we are winding up, you say most of the foreigners are managing our hotels. You know, if we were to take a look at this from a broader perspectives. Now, according to a report here, the percentage of hotels owned by blacks and foreigners varies depending in the region. Blacks, okay, maybe blacks might sound racist, but I'm trying to talk about local natives, African natives, vis-a-vis the foreigners, you know. Yeah, because I feel like the industry, the main goal is to attract foreign direct investment. Now, in North Africa, for example, we see that 80% of the hotels are owned by foreigners. While in Southern Africa, 60% of the hotels are owned by blacks. Now, the percentage of the hotels that attract more Africans or foreigners also, we see that it varies in here. And of course, like I say, depending on the region. Now, the estimated number of hotels owned by black foreigners also varies depending on the region. Now, in North Africa, for example, there is an estimated 18% of the hotels that are owned by blacks, while in Southern Africa, there is an estimated 30% of hotels that are owned by blacks. Now, the estimated number of hotels that attract more Africans, that is all blacks, also varies depending on the region, like 18% of the hotels attracting more foreigners, most especially in Southern Africa. And of course, this is to quite a number of factors, as we shall be getting to see, because also, by the way, Godwin, I feel like for some of the successes, for example, Rwanda is one of the countries that has the policy, the investment policies are a little bit friendly, as because it's one of those countries that have quite a fast-growing tourism sector, and quite a number of foreigners have come to invest into that. You know, so that is key, and one of the reasons as to why actually most of the foreigners beat us when it comes to investment, most especially in this industry, is because of the in-depth knowledge that they acquire about the country's investment policies.
That's interesting, right? We talk about the in-depth knowledge on the policies of each country. However, we also talk about the in-depth knowledge of the hotel industry as a whole. So a lot of these foreigners come in with that knowledge of what is the nook and cranny of this hotel industry, what is needed, what attracts the people, what is the backbone of a successful hotel. They come with that experience, that international experience, that international acclaim that comes with it. Let's just use our neighbors over here in East Africa, in Kenya. If you look at the hotels industry in Kenya, we have amazing 5-star, 6-star hotels that have propped up over the years in Kenya. But we also have a large number of Kenyans that take on the hospitality industry course. We have many people in Kenya, boys, men, it's marketed to men, it's marketed to women, it's marketed to marginalized groups. So you find a lot of people are proud to walk and say, I work in the hotel industry, I'm doing hospitality and management, right? So we find that we're hiring, because Ugandans have typically not looked at the hotel management industry as a lucrative industry. When you tell someone you're doing hotel management in Uganda, they're thinking, you just want to be you want to be a masseuse, you want to be a masseuse, you want to be in a spa.
Just a waitress.
Right, or waitress.
Something like that. That's what
there's a limited and skewed view on what hospitality and management, keyword, and management is. So we find that there are huge courses. There's actually courses with chef schools in Kenya, chef schools centered towards chef, producing the best chefs in East Africa. People who are aiming for the Michelin star chef, because that's what makes a hotel, the food experience, the chefs that are in there, the management. We find that just restaurants like Cafe Java sends its people for training in Kenya for hospitality and management. Just so they come back. That's why you find that the standards are a little different, because they train their people in the way of the international realm. We do not have enough of the people here promoting the hotel and management course, right? So as the foreign investors are coming into your point, they're coming in with that knowledge of, listen, we know what's missing in this country. There's so much potential. Uganda always has potential. So much potential, but what are we doing with this potential? So much land, so much ignorance of the people not understanding how lucrative the industry is. So when someone comes in and then centers a hotel and has the best service, has the best food, has a top chef that is paying for it, right? That experience, that immersive experience is what's going to bolster the hotel to the 5-star, 6-star level. So this foreigners come in with that mindset. But unfortunately, where we start to meet each other off is the foreigners are met with people here who are reluctant to step up to the plate, right? The foreign investors. So you find that even those foreign investors are thinking, I don't need to invest too much into my stuff. I'll just hire someone.
Because of the culture.
Because of the culture here is a bit laissez-faire, a bit lax. So yeah.
And actually, I was trying to take a look in here. Of course, coming in down to the local investors in here that set up these accommodation related facilities. It could be a hotel or any resort. You see, there is what we call in Africa. In most cases, most of the investments that we are so much of profit driven. We care less about market share. And when we talk about market share, it calls for investment, because market share can be something you can attain over time. And I always emphasize the Silicon Valley culture, that I can take 5 years operating on a loss, but I'm having the market share. And once I get out there and I officially put my product out there, because of the 5 years experience, I'm building the market share, I'm investing in the branding, I'll definitely have the class quality. Because we also need to understand what is the period when I invest, the gestation period, when it comes to the returns of this industry. You know, that's where majority of the people actually put off.
Yes.
In terms of that, I mean, return on investment and the period of time.
It's true. Yeah, they're looking at the ROI, right?
But they have not invested in the market share.
And we find that, what are some of these hotels? Of course, when you look at the most prolific hotels that are owned here in Uganda, we have the Hotel Africana, which is owned by Ugandan, but even then, is the standard up to 5-star, 6-star? I do not know. Those are things that we need to be able to look at, right? So some of the potential improvements that could happen for our industry, the hotel industry, of course, security enhancement. Addressing security concerns and ensuring safe travel environments will boost the tourist confidence in some of the hotels that you have. I mean, we just talked about it last month, about the scare that happened to the tourist, the person that died. Right, whilst on tour here in I think in one of the tourist areas in Uganda. So that creates a lot of concerns for people to come in and say, can I come and experience the hotel system?
Exactly.
Because the more we have guests come on board, the more they're going to want to invest in that. But also, are we marketing our hotels here? Are we marketing that market share still to foreigners to come in and be able to boost it? And because if you're looking at the areas with a lot of foreign investment, they have to put in a lot more money to make sure it's up to snuff, it's international standards. I mean, we just talked about some of the hotels in East Africa and some of the good ones that we have, right? That are really, really thriving. So how are we marketing it? I mean, when you look at hotels like Clé de Montagne, right, in South Africa, it's a privately owned 5-star complex of 4 villas, a wine food farm established by French Huguenots in 1692. So are you seeing the history and the culture around that?
1692.
It's a privately owned 5-star complex. How many privately owned 5-star complexes do we have? Something that doesn't have any other partners but just a local who says, I'm investing. Let's say Wavamuno says, we're having this hotel and puts in the NUF. And you know, there's also what they call, there's particular hotels that are not, we don't build for mass scale but you almost build for a limited amount of people to come in.
Yeah.
The limitation to the number of people that come to your hotel can also raise its standard, right? So when you have, it's a boutique hotel. When we don't have enough boutique hotels, I know we have Canary Hotel, but if you have a boutique hotel, it's a centered experience where it's not that many rooms, like a massive hotel, but it could have maybe up to 20, 30, 40 rooms.
Exactly.
But that experience is very, it's very intimate experience. You're able to have almost like a kitchen type setting, a home-like setting, but a very modern-esque feel. Sometimes people are looking for something different, but sometimes the idea of massive scale is what fails people, because we don't have the capacity yet to manage on a large level. And because we don't have the capacity to manage on a large level, 90, 200 rooms, you find that we're struggling with that. And the investors here are struggling to make back their ROI.
Exactly.
Because they're thinking we're serving for a massive scale, but we don't have enough people coming in. So how about you reduce the number of rooms and then increase your budget on the quality of the experience? So when you're coming in, they're starting to say, oh, when I go into Uganda, there's a very unique hotel that's in the Paintable Forest. That is very unique. It's a limited experience, only about 20 to, you have to book it in advance, things like that. Do we have enough of those unique experiences? Because when we produce on a larger scale, we're not able to sustain it in some ways, I believe.
Very true, very true. And probably just maybe to add on that, to the investors, most especially in Uganda, I'm talking about portfolio, best hotels, being able to manage risk in so many perspectives. And actually, that's a suggestion. For example, you lose nothing to have a real estate incorporated with your hotel. You know, some sort of a ways of diversifying this, whereby you have quite a number of products and all represent you. You know, that other because once you lose out on one, you are gaining on something else.
Right.
You know, for example, I normally see this very because I'm so passionate about movies that, for example, like you see Warner Brothers Pictures being a Time Warner company. You know, having that portfolio. Time Warner has nothing to do with the initial company itself. Has nothing to do with movies or anything. But they just decided to have quite a huge product under their name and all that. So hotels could be one of the ways. Now you've been talking about because one of the biggest issues that these hotels are facing is the cost of production, and now they need to see how they can lower production and increase profit. But now they have to invest in quite a line of products, range of products.
And we do have an example of that in this country as well. We have, of course, Naguru Skies Hotel is under Simba Group of Companies, right?
That is absolutely perfect.
Owned by Bitaturi.
Yes.
So he's one of the Ugandan people who I think his concept was brilliant, right? Exactly. But I think it's the marketing around it that needs to be bolstered a little bit, but he's on the right path. He's one of the few people who I say Ugandan owned. He's doing everything right that we talked about. Ugandan owned mostly, and he has a group of companies, which is the Simba Group of Companies. What do they have? They have MTN under that. They have the Simba Tours that are under that as well. So it's a whole encapsulation. It's an ecosystem of chambers. So it's not just the hotel Naguru Skies, but it's under the Simba Group of Companies, like you mentioned, Time Warner, and it's not just about movies. So you're able to diversify your portfolio. How does that help? So you find that your other products might be doing better than your hotel.
Exactly.
That is how you keep the hotel running. That's how you keep the staff at the hotel going. You have a central place where someone knows that is your hotel and that's your establishment. It might not be making as much profit depending on the years, but your other products now like Simba Telecom will have that money that's being made that can basically finance, or we can use both of them to be able to promote each other, if that makes sense. So one can help the other in some way. So when you diversify your portfolio under that one echo chamber, it helps to definitely bolster for the hotel system. And we have to have a lot more people do that, is be able to think outside the box, which is a very good point you brought out just there.
All right, very interesting. It's just 5 minutes for us to, of course, wind up off here. But of course, we have quite of the advantages on what Godwin has been mentioning in the portfolio best aspects. Of course, there is the reduced risk, of course, increased liquidity in here, and the access to economies of scale. Like you mentioned, that some of the products may not be performing efficiently than in your line, but others are doing well, and you keep your major project moving. Of course, there is a few disadvantages that are associated with it, despite the good side of it. Of course, we see the increased complexity. Managing portfolio of hotels can be more complex than managing a single hotel. Now, this is very typical when it comes to because quite the key. Yesterday we had an issue about corporate governance and realized that it's a big issue here in Uganda.
Yes.
If just an organization, you can fail to manage your own self, because everything that happens, the politics within the organization is largely determined on the corporate governance framework, that you have in there. And now that has been a big issue. Now, zeroing it down to the hotel industry, you can still see how we can relate to it. Now, I mean, why I think we are limited to have such in Uganda, and we have few, like you mentioned, the skies, when it comes to that aspect of the corporate governance, management, maintaining, overseeing, making sure that all the lines, all your products that you're producing in your portfolio are actually up to the standard. Otherwise, you find that you can actually have, you may tend, because of the poor management and limited oversight, you tend to focus more on one line of product, and you're killing the reputation of the other because it's all carrying your name.
Absolutely. And when you have a name, it should be, your name is your brand, your name is everything. It takes you through the whole sphere, right?
Yeah.
And do we have, this goes back to skills training and management.
Skills training and
we need to have a lot more skills training. We have to have a lot of these hotels actually taking their staff for intensive training, investing in your people. They should feel like they have some sort of equity in this company, in these hotels. Remember, a hotel is an experience. A hotel is service-based. What are you offering? You're offering a service. You're offering a service of comfort. You're offering a service of quality. You're offering that service of that immersive experience, right? So if at every level, let's say the big hotel has its restaurant, right? That's there. It has its bar, like let's say Blue Skies. They have all these centers. Let's say it has a shopping mall as well. Is every facet being managed correctly, as what you were saying? And everything has to work coherently to make sure the brand is thriving. And I believe that goes and trickles down to skills management as we're hiring and firing. Who is monitoring those things? Because what's happening is a lot of people, there's a gap. Remember when Golf Course Hotel opposite first came around here, and all of us were rushing to go and see the revolving restaurant, right?
Revolving.
Back in the day. Of course, now it's a bit defunct. Maybe it was because of the marketing, and maybe they haven't stepped up, or they haven't improved the standard, or they haven't stepped up to the market changes, right? And we talked about how the tourist changes, tourist preferences are changing constantly, right? There's more digital tourism, a lot is changing. Virtual tourism. So a lot of that has changed. The landscape of tourism has changed. So we're finding that hotels that are struggling now are those that are failing to adapt to the current climate of tourism now, especially since COVID, right? So because of that, we're finding we have a lot of foreign managers. If you look at Hotel Africana, managed mostly by Indians, and we not to knock on anyone else, but I'm just giving examples so that are relatable. We have other hotels internationally managed by Kenyans, because those are people that are doing the skills and training management so well that they're managing these hotels properly, but we're not having enough of that skills training. So we don't have enough skills locals training doing that to make sure that a hotel industry is thriving.
And maybe lastly, before we get in there, I don't know what you think about this, but personally, I feel like a success of any industry, okay, as we are relating it to this, when you also take a look, of course, the macro and microeconomic factors are playing upon that key, but of course, zeroing it down to the macro perspective, development of capital markets in that country. Because now, when you have a stable corporate governance structure, you have the shareholders, the stakeholders, you will be in position to actually have those right decisions on how to raise capital. And which is the issue we've been having, that most of the hotels in Uganda, the decisions come from one person.
Right. And that's where the issue of there's lack of equity from the general people as well. It's only one person overseeing everything, and it's impossible to do. So if enough people have enough stake in it, if enough people have enough stake, there's checks and balances where there's accountability to be had to make sure things are done right. And those are things that we lack. And one of the things that we're struggling with is the standardization of best practices. We don't have enough of that standardization of best practices, right? So because it's one area is like this, the other is like this, there's not enough standard, because it's an image, it's a product, which is what we talked about before, where Sheraton Uganda will not be like Sheraton US or Sheraton Malaysia, right? It's completely different because there's lack of standardization because of them, as you mentioned, within the governance or within the country itself. There's not enough people stepping up to be able to hold people accountable. There's not enough checks and balances, and that's where we struggle as general African continent in terms of the industry.
Thank you, Godwin, for that. It's just 9 minutes to the top of the hour. Now we come to the end of the show. Smart Means Business, today's edition, that is on the 23rd of November 2023. But of course, we're very grateful for you for being part of this. We shall link up again tomorrow. Good morning.
Smart